Old man winter's on his way. Time to think about your heating system. Today on Service Above Self. Hello and welcome to Service Above Self. I'm Clark Mason. Today we're going to talk about heating system maintenance with Mark Taylor and Bill Kulig of Taylor Energy. Gentlemen, there's nothing I hate more than coming home or poking my nose up from underneath the covers and the place is just frozen solid. The heating system isn't working. And so this is certainly something this time of year we have to think about doing some maintenance to. What types of things do you normally do? Mark?
Depending on the type of system you have, there's many heating systems out there today that we service or many companies service, whether it's run on natural gas or oil heat, whether it's forced hot air or hydronic systems. Today's newer systems are incorporating high velocities for heating and cooling. But basically on the oil or gas side of the heating units, we check for a bunch of things to make sure the system is running as highest efficiency. We check for the amount of CO in a system for natural gas and propane systems. We'll look at the flame color, make sure our flame is burning properly. We'll look at the filters in the system, make sure we get the proper amount of air going through across the heat exchanger. If it is a warm air furnace, typically sometimes they are hydronic boilers that are gas fired also. We'll look at safety devices. Make sure if it doesn't light in 30 seconds that it shuts off properly so we don't have any excess gas in your basement or anywhere that's going to be harmful to you or your family.
Now that's one of the things that's come up quite a bit in recent years is things having to do with gas systems. Mm-hmm. Certainly installing CO detectors in the house is a big thing, and carbon monoxide is certainly an odorless, colorless gas that can be fatal. In your maintenance, what types of things exactly are you doing to make sure that this gas isn't entering the house, and what type of things do you find that could cause it to enter the house?
We're looking at the CO levels of the house. We'll have a CO detector going there, and we're going to take a look at the CO levels, making sure they're not excessively high. Sometimes we find out the chimneys go bad, and where a unit will, a part of the chimney will fall down upon itself and block the gases from escaping. We found that'll also set off a gas detector if it's burning too rich or too lean, depending on the air mixture. These are some of the things that will trigger a gas unit to go off and have a hazardous situation.
I've heard in some cases that even some people sealing off the room where the gas burner is so much so that it can't have enough air for the flame can be a problem as well.
Absolutely, that's correct. What we call that is makeup air, combustion makeup air. So many towns will, actually the fire codes, NFPA fire codes allow certain size intakes into those rooms by code so that doesn't happen. But you're absolutely correct. Today's homes today, we're building so tight that we do have problems bringing in enough air to make that mixture sometimes, depending on the heating system. Mm-hmm.
Now you mentioned earlier that one of the things that you do in the case of a forced air system is that you need to change the filters. How do filters affect the efficiency of a heating system?
Well, what we're doing is we're using a blower to push the cooler air from your house, obviously across the heat exchanger, what we call. What we want to do is we want to maximize that air going across there. Anytime a filter gets plugged up, it'll start reducing the airflow across there, mm-hmm. Therefore taking longer to heat the home, taking more gas to heat it over time, and therefore your winter bills are going to go up with the more plugged up a filter, so to speak, you get.
Do you find a lot of that when you go into homes?
Always. Always, because lots of times it's also tied in the same system as an air conditioning system. So it's the same blower unit sometimes running year round. So we recommend them every 3 to 6 months replacing them if you have air conditioning, because we're always blowing either cold air, warm air across your air conditioning condenser, or we're doing the warm air for the furnace here. So depending upon what season it is, we're blowing that air through the filter. If that gets clogged, it'll hurt both units, the cooling and the heating maximization.
Affect the efficiency of both. Yeah. What types of things actually plug up a filter like that?
Pet hair, dust mites. If you have a very active household, a lot of children running around, that'll bring in across the filter. What else do we have? Dust.
well, even old carpeting, believe it or not,
Sure.
start moving that around and you get all these dust particles that slowly go in there. And it depends on your air filter also. You could have a standard, I'm sure you've seen them, a lot of little lines in them. That's just a standard filter. Or if you go into more of the extensive types, like the 3M, the HEPA you might buy at your local
Right.
hardware store, those need to be changed more often because they'll get you down to that dander and the dust mites, where some of the larger filters are just for basically particles. So if you have allergies or things like that, health reasons, you might want to go to that next step, that next filter. But yeah, there's so many different things in your home, whether you have pets, old carpeting, you live in an area where maybe you don't even have a paved road. Maybe you live off a little side road, a little dirt or dust that blows around your farm area. Lint, all of that can get through the house, get into the system, clog that filter up.
Right, and actually even, the skin that falls off your body is part of what ends up in that stuff as far as plugging up the filters. So I suppose if we had no pets and no people in the house, it would all last longer. But what fun would that be? In the case of an oil heat type of a system, what are some things that need to be done on an annual basis for maintenance of one of those?
Well, on an annual basis with an oil boiler, it's really important first that you make sure you do an inspection on the inside, a technician, a licensed technician. And the reason for that is that we see so many times homeowners try to do things on their own, whether on the oil side or the gas side, and we've seen some disastrous results even here in the state of Connecticut. So it's always good to have a professional come into your home and do these things first off. Now when we open up the boiler and we take a look at things, we look at the inside of the boiler, we're looking first for soot and things of that nature. 1/8 inch of soot would be equivalent to 1/4 inch of insulation. And what I mean by that is your heat transfer. The heat can't go through that soot to be absorbed into the boiler. So what's happening is it's rolling out your chimney, and there goes your hard-earned money. So really, to have it brushed and vacuumed every year is a wise thing to do, because when everything's said and done, you're going to get your money back in your efficiencies alone. Also changing the oil filter, flushing the oil line, checking your fuel filter pump and the nozzle are also very important. And the reason for that is it takes a lot of stress off of the oil burner so that it can operate properly and burn efficiently so you don't get soot builds up through the year. Now, of course, safety should be checked at this time, expansion tanks and things of that nature, to make sure that everything's running within the proper operating temperatures and pressures within the system's operation. Whether if it's a warm air furnace, of course, just like we were talking a little while ago about what we would do with a gas furnace, a lot of the same things apply to that also. But really what it comes down to is a good thorough inspection, and then finally having an efficiency test done on the unit to know how well it's burning, whether it's gas or it's oil, so that you know you're getting peak performance, you're getting the most bang for your buck.
Now, with that heat exchanger that you're talking about, in the case of your hot air types of systems, that heat exchanger is only like sheet metal, isn't it? So you can have some failure with that as well.
Well, when you're going in and you're doing an inspection and you go and you do the physical cleaning and things of that nature, the age of the unit, and when you're cleaning, you're also looking for details that might show signs of areas that are burning out, whether it be a boiler or a furnace, because there's some boilers still that give indications on the jackets and things of that nature through discoloration that it's time.
And that's something that a professional would recognize where it might go unnoticed by a homeowner if they were trying to do that.
Yeah, they'll start noticing fumes upstairs. They'll start noticing a little bit of black soot above the registers once in a while. Just various things. You'll know and smell it pretty quickly when you do it. If it's oil, if it's natural gas, it's going to be a little bit longer for you to find out. But there are tests we can do on it. You'll run the blower and take a draft test usually, and if we see the draft run on that, it'll usually to tell us that we have a hole in the heat exchanger.
Mm-hmm. And it certainly could be a dangerous thing, particularly in the case of the natural gas, because of the carbon monoxide being as poisonous as it is. In the case of, you're referring to a hydronic system, so those are ones that have water. So if you have radiators of some kind, most of them nowadays are some sort of a hydronic type of a system, whether that be gas or oil. What are some things that can go wrong or that you need to maintain on an annual basis with that type of stuff?
Well, I would have to say if you have your annual inspection and everything's tested, not to say that things can't break during the year, but if your annual inspection is done right, if you're checking the feeders, checking the high vents, if you ask the right questions to the customer, such as are you hearing noise in your radiators when they're operating? and they say, well, yeah, it kind of sounds like an aquarium. That tips off a good technician. He's asked the right question. He knows now that there's air in the system and that there's something wrong, whether the feeder's not putting enough water into the system, or actually the vents that are supposed to be removing the air from the system aren't doing their job. Either way, again, here's a time to do that preventive maintenance when the technician's already in your home.
Right. So, what could happen, I would assume, because I've had this happen in one of our homes, was that you get enough air in there and then it won't circulate. You don't get any heat. And so that's something that you certainly want to have them check the air scoops and make sure that they're all working properly.
Another thing, Clark, I've seen is a lot of baseboard heat is people never take the time to vacuum it off. The inside the baseboards there, you get all the fins there that emit all the heat. I've seen them covered with dust and lint and everything, and nobody neglects them because it's not like they're changing a filter for it. I usually tell a homeowner, take a vacuum through that and go from that, and clean that off to make sure your heat's coming up from your pipes.
Right, because that could insulate it just the same way that it could in the case of having a filter type of a system. And as you mentioned, there's no filters with that, so pet hair and all that stuff can get stuck in there. And a lot of times you can tell, that first time you start using the heating system in the winter, there's a smell. You can say, the heat's coming on. Well, there's something on the heating element.
Something's baking.
Something's baking. You really should get that off there. So that's something that a do-it-yourselfer could do is just take the vacuum cleaner and either get in there or remove the cover and take that off of the baseboard heaters. So that's probably a good thing to do. Now, you guys must have seen some interesting things going into people's homes nowadays. Here in a little bit we'll talk about more modern heating systems, but there are probably still some older ones out there, aren't there? What type of things do you run into?
Oh my goodness! Well, you still run into what's called the old pancake boiler that's covered with asbestos or snow. Do you call them snow cones? I know there's so many snowmen. There's so many different names for them. And of course, when we go down into a basement, you just smile, and the customer looks and says, "Oh, it's still running. It's 62 years old, and it runs good." And yeah, it may be a reliable heat source, but certainly a dinosaur. Everything's wide open. It was designed for coal. It might have been designed for wood or some other product like that. And what happens is those were wide open because, of course, coal and those things burning so dirty, you did have a big soot buildup. With the newer fuels that we're using, they're burning a lot cleaner today. The equipment that we're using is working a lot better, so it's burning that fuel very nicely. We've seen up to, even with those old snowmen, up to 50% savings with high efficiency systems going in. So imagine cutting your heating bill almost in half because of doing a properly designed system that goes into your home.
Well, that certainly could be something that could affect the family budget quite a bit.
Oh, absolutely.
We're going to take a break right now, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about these high efficiency systems and different ways in which you can actually save money on your heating bill.
Could you dedicate yourself to a worthy cause? Could you go the distance to keep a child healthy? Could you travel to the other side of the world to help eliminate polio? Could you? A Rotary member could. We're dedicated to connecting children with vaccinations and ending polio worldwide. All it takes is one person to make a difference, like me, like you. Could you help change the world? Will you? Rotary, humanity in motion.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Mark Taylor and Bill Kulig from Taylor Energy about heating systems and ways in which you may be able to save some energy. Years ago, back when I was in high school in the 70s, we had a course on alternate energy where you learn about things like solar systems and whatnot. But the first thing that they taught you about, which talk about boring all of a sudden, is, well, you had to plug up the leaks. You had to, in order to improve the efficiency. So put in more insulation and things of that nature. What are some common ways that you see to improve the bill without necessarily having to replace the whole heating system?
Well, as far as insulating, of course, if you take a look at your house, there's a lot of different things that you can do to tighten it up just a little bit to make it more of a package that won't allow that heat out or allow the heat back in when you're using your air conditioning system. One of the biggest savings that you can make at minimal cost is by actually blowing insulation into your attic if you haven't done so yet. Of course, there's different design homes. You might not be able to do that everywhere, but you want to maximize that efficiency. And there's some ways to do that. And a great way to start, if you're going to do any kind of insulating, is to contact your local utility company and let them know that you would like to do something like this. And what they'll do is they'll send over people that are trained and certified, say by BPI, which is Building Performance Institute. What it is a group that has that trains and certifies these people to come into homes and look for those gaps in those areas that can be improved with minimal investment. Also, because you use the state has incentive monies that you can take advantage of as they're available.
So how about things like setback thermostats? I mean, what can that do for you?
Setback thermostats are a real quick, easy way to reduce the temperature of your home while you're away from your home. A lot of people think if you live at home all the time, that'll save you money by putting it on the wall, but it's really meant for the family that's gone during the daytime and wants to turn the heat down after they go to bed at night. Setback thermostats, they do work. I've seen them save anywhere from 3 to 6% on the savings for a year for the heating cost. Usually works better in homes that are very tight, that have a lot of insulation, so that during the daytime, when the cold air is coming into the home, it doesn't impact the temperature of the home too much.
Right, because I remember back in the 70s when, you know, the energy crisis was on, and we made some improvements like that, added like 12 inches of insulation in the attic and put in a setback thermostat between those two things that like cut our heating bill in half. But you know, today the houses are required to be more insulated than the house that I lived in at the time. But that certainly is something where you can make a great big difference. And when you're talking about, you know, probably the average fuel bill for a customer is probably at least a couple $1,000s annually. This turns into real money real quick.
Absolutely.
And it's just going out the windows and through the roof, and
the chimney.
There's different ways that you can improve that. Now, today, you know, we were just talking about the dinosaurs in the basement. I mean, you're talking about heating systems where they may have originally been coal and then converted to oil, let's say, and these things are just behemoths. Today, there's a lot of technology out there that can improve the efficiency of heating systems. And what types of things are you guys seeing in the industry today?
We're seeing a lot with controls coming out now, where controls are starting to moderate based on outside temperature. What we call outdoor resets are coming through today. What it does is that a boiler's usually made, the old style boiler that we're used to accustomed to seeing, is used to sending 180-degree water through the baseboard to use the heat in the house through the baseboard. Today, we have outdoor reset. We're seeing that being lowered to days where, like today, it's 50 degrees out, 60 degrees out. Instead of bringing the boiler up to 180 degrees, we're bringing the boiler up to 150, 130 degrees to get the house up to 6 degrees in a mild day here. So we're seeing a lot of controls that are different. On furnaces, we're seeing new motors, variable speed motors. So that's, again, looking at the outside, the air temperature, how fast we want to heat the home. Either put the blower on full speed, medium speed, or low speed, depending on what air we have to make up to bring it up.
ECM motors are big too.
Yeah.
They actually use a third of the energy that the old motors used to use. So if you have a warm air furnace or even a burner that's operating, instead of it using, say it's costing you $100 a year to use that burner as far as electricity, you're using only a third of that now, so bring it down to about $33, which is amazing. And then if you consider that they're starting to do that now with the blower motors on air conditioning systems and on forced warm air systems, it's making a huge difference in savings just on your electric bill.
Mm-hmm. So this is a case where motor technology has improved.
Oh, absolutely.
We've seen that in all kinds of different, even in my area with automotive, there's been big improvements with motors like that. And, you know, the idea that it just doesn't have to be on or off. You know, it's you know, that'd be like if you had a car, if you only had two choices in your throttle, wide open or not at all. That's the way a heating system works in most cases.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So now to have, in some cases, variable delivery of gas rate and variable speeds with the fans or pumps or things of that nature, that actually can be used to improve efficiency and reduce lost energy.
Absolutely.
So what other types of technologies are you guys seeing out there that are on the horizon?
Well, one of the things that we touched upon was how well the oil is burning today, and even the gas for that matter. They're using newer technologies and they're trying to find better ways to get a better combustion. And that's a wonderful thing, but they've also made changes in the designs with the boilers. Especially, I think, when we take a look at the boilers of yesteryear, they were wide open, single pass. They would burn the oil down at the bottom and the heat would just go right up and then out the chimney. Today's newer boilers, you have triple pass boilers. They're called Scotch Marine is actually the real name for it, but triple pass means that fuel gas is going to pass 3 times before it actually goes out that chimney, and it's actually removing more and more of that heat. Also, the sizes of boilers have changed. You know, before, probably in our day, bigger was always better. And today that's not the case. We have smaller, tinier package boilers, and you look and you go, how could that possibly heat my house?
Right, I mean, and you're not exaggerating what you're seeing. I've seen houses that have a boiler that's literally this big, and it heats the whole house.
Well, they were installed at a time when oil was 8 cents a gallon.
Yeah, so these old ones are just enormous, and you know, sometimes these small gas ones are just minuscule, comparatively speaking, and they do the job.
We just hung a condensing gas boiler on a wall that weighed 52 pounds. So it's amazing what they're doing today with technology, and it's amazing also what they're doing with oil-fired boilers. Again, they're removing more heat, and they're keeping it in the home for the homeowner rather than it going out the chimney. And I think that's an important thing, especially when we see the fuel prices, all fuel prices, going in a direction we don't like seeing them go.
Absolutely, and as you're just mentioning, in a case of a condensing boiler, you're actually talking the temperature of the gas exiting the boiler is actually so low that they can use plastic pipe. It doesn't even have to be a metal chimney anymore. They've extracted that much of the heat from it. And so that's not energy that's just going up the flue, so to speak.
And we'll see what they do in the future to take that out of it too and keep it in the home. Who knows where it's going to go. But certainly it'll be fun to see where we're headed.
Absolutely. Now these new technologies obviously aren't cheap, and for that matter, any type of heating system replacement is an expensive undertaking. But the reality of the fact is that there are things that can make this possible, and can you talk to like some of the incentives that are out there, and of course the savings due to upgrading the equipment itself?
Well, considering an oil-fired boiler, if we look at a standard boiler with a single pass, 30-year-old design with a tankless coil, a boiler like that would, on an average price, would be somewhere between $4,500 and $5,000 to install. Now, for an average homeowner that, say, burns 1,000 gallons a year, the payback would probably be out about 20 years, just because of the fact you're only going to save probably 10, maybe 15% if it's a really antiquated boiler you're taking out. And why? It's because of the fact that it doesn't remove that heat. It doesn't have the new technologies in it to keep that in your home. And the newer boilers, they probably would run another $3,000 over that cost. But the payback with that is actually 7 to 10 years. So you see the drastic difference. Even though you may pay a little more money up front, you're going to get a huge payback on your investment in a shorter term. And that means more money in your pocket a few years down the road.
And I would tend to think that, as we saw a few years ago, if the price of fuel skyrockets, then that payback is even shorter.
It's going to increase, but also at the same time, at least you know that in your home, you've maximized the efficiency of your home so that you can deal with it a little bit better. We see fuel prices sometimes spike like that, and it's good to put yourself in that situation. You had mentioned incentives and things of that nature. With oil-fired boilers and gas-fired boilers, there's zero-interest loans available at this time, and they come from time to time. They come and go with the state and the federal government. There's also tax write-offs, rebates that come around from time to time also. And it's good to talk to your fuel provider or even call your local utility company, because they're usually pretty familiar with what's going on out there.
So that's good. Any other things that you guys are seeing on the horizon here in the heating systems that are out there that are new and different?
I think one of the most interesting things that I've seen just recently was there was a new burner on the market for oil, and it's actually firing at almost 100% efficiency. Now, of course, this is going to be in a condensing application with a boiler, so they're going to have to design a system that's actually going to be able to handle the condensing of that unit. But we see some new things coming down the road. We see some new controls and things of that nature. And I think really overall what it's going to come down to is, especially when we're building new homes, is we have to change our thought process as far as how we're going to design our home, as far as how we want to heat it. Because condensing boilers and things of that nature need a certain amount of baseboard, or they need radiant heat and things of that nature, really to maximize the efficiencies of those boilers. And of course that costs a little bit more money up front, but the payback comes back to you.
So that's a great thing. So we'll certainly see a lot of that happening in really not the very distant future, because these are technologies that are actually fairly close at hand. So when you get into things of that nature and other technologies like they're talking about, like combined heat and power, fuel cells and things of that nature, is going to be a very interesting time. That long term we'll be actually able to save money on our systems. So that'd be pretty interesting, I think.
One of the things I've noticed over the last couple of years is how aware now the homeowner is of their heating bill. For many years here, up until probably the early 2000s, the homeowner kind of just, that was their bill and that was it. It's not in the forefront as it is today in terms of looking at oil prices, natural gas prices, propane prices. The homeowner now is putting the pressure on us oil company, on us energy providers, to make sure we're installing high efficiency equipment. They want to know exactly what they're getting, and we've been asked questions. I mean, we're dealing with homeowners now that they're telling us what they want, and they're more educated now today about their heating system than we are. We're kind of just laying out the plans that we think is going to give them the best investment for them, and they're really educated now. The homeowner is very aware of heating costs now today.
Very good. We just have a short amount of time yet left, so I'd really like to thank you guys, Mark and Bill, for coming out today, because I think that certainly a heating system is something that eats up a lot of dollars out of your wallet. So I think it's important for everybody to know things that they can do simply to save a buck, certainly in these hard economic times. So for all of us here at Service Above Self, I'd like to thank you for tuning in, and as we always say here at Service Above Self, go out there and find a worthy cause and lend a helping hand.